As we heard from Mara this morning, UCM was born at a very particular time in history, a moment of economic expansion, that sense of possibilities. I know growing up here in Mississauga in the 70s, a lot of what's here now was just farm fields and open spaces. And I imagine that was even more so in the late 50s. So we're held by this foundational history. We've been shaped by it, this story of can-do people who did. People who needed a building and built it themselves. People who needed a different religion found Unitarianism and shaped it to their needs. One of our essential theological identities as UUs is that we are a living tradition. Our symbol is a flickering, flowing flame, ever changing. In Canada, we say we aspire to be theologically alive, ever evolving in our understanding, open to new knowledge. We know full well that time does not stand still, that it moves ever onward, so we try to incorporate new insights, new ways of being as we go forward. At the same time, though, we need the comfort and security of tradition. It's good to know that some things don't change. And so we sing the same chalice lighting and the same benediction with good reason. There's power in repetition, in doing things over and over again so that they sink deep into you. It's power in being in the same place, looking out at the same birch tree, season after season, year after year. Tradition passes meaning from one generation to the next. It can pass on cultural norms, family customs, religious values. And there is beauty to be found in tradition, a beauty that might not propel us forward in the sense of quantifiable progress, but it propels us forward as human beings in wisdom and emotional understanding. Tradition holds us safe even as time passes and things change. And I was reminded at the power of this last fall when Mark and I visited our son in Paris. While he was at school, we wandered around the Latin Quarter one day, and this is one of the oldest parts of Paris near Seine. And I saw an old Gothic church. There was an open door, so we went in. Known as St. Severin, this current building is a mix of several centuries of Gothic architecture. It's one of the oldest churches in Paris. A chapel was first built on the site in the 12th century, and that chapel was built on the site of a monastery that had been established in the 7th century. There were big stone pillars, pale stone pillars, and they were rough and cool to the touch, and they hold up soaring arches. There was no pews, just ordinary chairs lined up in rows in the center. And all around the edge of the church were large alcoves dominated by stained glass and these intricate murals. The murals are medieval, and in one alcove, restorationists were working away. They were standing on scaffolding under high-tech lights, carefully restoring color to these detailed biblical figures. But the large stained glass windows were bold and abstract. They were full of vibrant color, and they were added in the 1970s. One person sits quietly praying in the center. The restorationists work, and the tourists wander. And as I wonder, held in the embrace of so many layers of history, music starts to ring. It's reverberating through the stone as someone plays the 18th century organ. And I leaned against a sturdy pillar, listening in this place that isn't just here and now, but also the past, still alive, still holding all of it. Churches hold time, layers and layers, the people over the centuries adapting and shifting the space, the building, enacting rituals over and over again, holding the beauty of the past, the power of tradition, offering it to the future. The meaning of this sacred space, which honors eternity, the mystery, the divine God, it remains even as the building changes and the rituals shift as well. even when it holds tourists and not worshipers. I loved this moment of feeling held in history by this ancient cathedral, the same and not the same for almost 1,000 years. There is beauty and power in tradition. It offers gifts of wisdom and emotional understanding. Our history, as UUs and as UCM, is of course a little shorter. We've met on this land since 1958, Sunday after Sunday, which doesn't seem so long ago after all. Our religious rituals are much younger than Catholic Christianity, but they can offer wisdom and insight. There's a reason why we have been developing our own rituals. For almost 100 years now, we've been sharing flowers in the spring. For the past 75 years, we've been lighting chalice. These traditions have value. They begin to embody our theology. They hold us together and they shape our days and years, providing comfort. They make us who we are. They remind us who we are, people of the chalice, who celebrate mystery and knowledge, love and justice, who care more about values than belief. Yet it is always easy to mistake tradition for the religion itself. It's human nature to resist change, to say that something we cherish must last forever. And so we can get stuck in time, stuck in the way things are, stuck in doing things the way they've always been done. Author Ardis Whitman wrote, "We must cherish our yesterdays, but never carry them as a burden into the future. Each generation must take nourishment from the other and give knowledge to the one that comes after." Saint Severin has been Saint Severin in Paris for almost 1,000 years, and it has done so by being changed, by adapting, by being made new by each generation, so that we are held by history even as time moves on. Even though we are held by history, carrying on age-old traditions, we are obviously also living in time which passes. Every moment new, the past always receding. Charlotte struggles to remember herself in first year university. It's so much harder for me. It is so long ago, but I can feel traces of that anxious, excited young woman who did indeed often fall asleep in the 8:30 history class. As the first quote about time said, time accumulates in the body, in the world, like wood does, layer upon layer. Time accumulates in us like rings on a tree, each layer dependent on the last, each year impossible without the one preceding it. Time accumulates like rings on a tree. Each of us has layers and layers of former selves building up to create who we are right now. Nothing's lost. It's all still with us. The good, the bad, the joyful, the sorrowful, all of it tree rings of time making us us. And really, everything is. Unitarian Universalism is the same. It's been created over generations of layers of time building up over and over. That church in Paris is thick with time. Our UU tree rings are fewer and smaller, but they're growing. We're still growing steadily, changing over time. And that past time accumulating like rings of a tree creates traditions, creates a solid center to all that we do, even as we live in this fourth dimension of time, constantly moving from one moment to the next. Time is that brisk wind. For each hour, it brings something new. Time is the air we breathe, the air we move through. In some moments, time is soft and slow, a gentle wisp of a moment. In other ways, it can be a mighty wind, sharp, biting, pushing us forward far too fast. We can barely catch our breath. And I think in this time, in this moment, the wind is rising. The pandemic, which brought a stop to our ordinary round of life, fingers crossed and double crossed, is coming to an end. But the world as a whole is different now. Global systems are unstable and uncertain. War and fascism are taking hold once more. Inflation is growing, housing and gas prices soaring. We aren't going back to our old normal. The wind is blowing strongly. As Frodo said, I wish this wasn't happening in my time. But it is. So all we have to decide is what to do with this time that has been given us. The old ways of being church aren't working anymore. Research study after research study shows that Sunday attendance in Protestant churches has been on a steady decline even before the pandemic, and the pandemic has only dropped it further. And it's been true for Unitarian Universalism as well. As a denomination, we've been slowly shrinking over the past 20 years. Now, I don't think this means religious impulse is dying. There's a corresponding explosion in spiritual seekers, people who need meaning, people who need community, but seek it out in different ways. It's not that religion is dying, it's that this particular mid-20th century Protestant model of church is not working for them. I am sure that our theology, our sense of interdependence and care for the earth, our desire to dismantle oppression and be fully inclusive, our celebration of the mystery, our theology has evolved to meet this moment and is needed now more than ever. But our model of how we celebrate, how we gather, hasn't evolved in the same way, and it's no longer meeting people where they are. For our theology to reach all of those people who need the chalice flame, because they are out there, we also have to reimagine our UU community life, the ways we gather, the ways we connect, the ways we celebrate and worship. Multi-platform, online, social media, this is the new normal. It's where the next generation is, and it's where we need to be. And at the same time, we know that people continue to yearn for meaningful in-person gatherings that are interactive, that allow them to show up fully as themselves. Being together still matters. And so in this new normal, it's going to be a time of experiment for us, of finding out what is essential to being Unitarian Universalists here in Mississauga. On Sundays, we will be in a circle more often. More services will be all ages and interactive. Spiritual exploration for kids will more often take place after the service, possibly in conjunction with adult education as well. You might try it at different times of the week. You might even try a different time for special services like our ceremonies. Congregational life has already been changed during the pandemic. Some of it for the good. I know most of us have wholeheartedly embraced evening committee meetings on Zoom instead of having to travel in traffic. So I know that we have the ability to figure out a new model of UU Church, one that honors the past but is not held back by it. Now is the moment to grow our community in new ways, to live online as well as right here, to be truly welcoming of all people who seek our theology, who need our community. As the winds of time blow strongly, we will work together to find ways to pass on our values and update traditions so that the chalice flame burns brightly for generations to come. I trust that these can-do people can do it. I trust that we will do it together. I trust that it will be a meaningful and brighter future for all of us. So say we all.